Good morning, code bakers. So we've got our super bare bones custom map here with the collision detection is working. So if George hits one of the objects that has the obstacle component in use, he'll stop only in that one direction. This is a very bare bones map at this point, and its main purpose is to provide some practice with tiled. If you recall, we have another map that the developer of the tiles, Lime Zoo on itch.io, had. We haven't added the obstacles to Lime Zoo's demo. If you just want to test this map and you switch back, you're going to see this rather scary error. But the error is not so bad. If you compare the two maps, happy_map.tmx and map.tmx, you'll notice that all we're missing from the Lime Zoo map.tmx is simply the obstacles layer. This obstacles layer is from tile D. We can verify this by commenting out the loader functions. And you see that we can load the map.tmx if we comment out the load obstacles. So this is one of the ways to trace a problem in your game development. Because we broke out the loaders into different functions, you can comment out one or more of the loaders. Open up the original map in Tiled. With the Layers tab selected, make sure you select a new object layer. Call it Obstacles. I think CodeBaker1 said this is the purple color for the obstacles. Just make sure it's not a tile layer. Using the rectangular drawing tool, select the obstacles like this red house that you want to have an obstacle around. So for this practice, I'm going to draw the obstacle around the houses. Let's repeat the process for the other houses. When we're actually playing the game, we may have to edit this and make sure the player doesn't get trapped. For example, there's this beige walkway where the apple pie is on the right-hand side. The apple pie is on the upper right-hand side of the screen. And it's not super clear how to get onto that path and whether George can fit between the houses. We may have to reduce down the size of George actually for this map, or potentially change the map in the future. But since this map is already nicely made, we'll likely have to figure out how George gets to the apple pie, potentially by reducing the size of George. The map still loads, so let's load the obstacles and see if we can restart the game and get rid of the earlier error. And boom, okay, it's working because now we have an obstacle layer and the obstacles are working. So George can no longer pass through the houses on this beautiful demo map from Lime Zoo. What we'll likely do is have this demo map from Lime Zoo be the level 1, and then your custom map for the next iteration of the storyline or the next chapter will be your custom map, and maybe there's a surprise, right? Maybe there's a plot twist that happens. Just as an FYI, we will change the text dialog into the Flutter overlay system so that it's not really moving around the screen. When you're developing your storyline or your plot, keep that in mind that the dialogue could theoretically be a more important part or a bigger part of your game, because we will move that text, the text component box from right now it's part of the Flame game, but I'm going to move it over into the Flutter widget system as an overlay to get a bit more control over it. Right now, I'm going to block out the water because there's these bridges from the demo map from Lime Zoo. So I'm assuming that the character is not supposed to be able to walk over the water, and we'll have to use the bridges. And again, I'm not sure if George is going to be able to fit with his current hitbox. The solution would be for us to make George smaller. Of course, then George is a little bit more difficult to see during our tutorial. So I'm trying to basically keep George as big as possible right now. But this at least will give us a bit of practice in showing how to block out more of the areas that are impassable, even these larger areas like water. And we have to make a decision of whether he's blocked by the trees or his speed is significantly slowed down by the trees. In this demo, the trees look very dense, so I'm thinking that we're going to block it out because it looks like a very dense shrubbery here. Also, you just have to add more complexity if we want to adjust the speed of George when he hits the trees. So to make it simpler, I'm just going to block it out and say that he can't pass through the forest. But if he can't pass through the forest, like how does he get to this apple pie in the upper right-hand side? So let's just deal with that a little bit later in our storyline here. I'm also going to block out the other forests and these small ponds, these water structures here. The houses are also blocked out, but he can walk right over these fences and the smaller shrubs, as well as most of the rocks, unless we block it out. I'm not going to block out every single feature because I don't want George to get trapped and not be able to explore the map, right? So if you make an error in blocking it out, your game could become unusable. The upper right-hand side of tile, you can use these eyes to show and hide the different layers of the map. If you just expose the obstacle layer, you can get a rough idea if George can pass through the corridors that's created by the obstacles. Even if George gets stuck, I think that's a okay situation right now because I think it's a good learning experience as you're making your game to see what's possible and what's not possible, right? So maybe the space is narrow enough for the character to barely fit through. You might want to go to a virtual joystick or something to get better control. Let's first run it and make sure that everything loads now. So it's looking good. All the obstacles are loading. George can walk around. Initially, I had that one button just tapping the screen to get George in going all four directions because it was simple and I liked it. But at this stage, there's kind of a need for more control, and whether you want to have this manner of control as a way for George as a challenge, or whether you think the user might get frustrated and might enjoy this challenge of like he has to cycle through all four directions. It's relatively easy to add a virtual controller or to tap on different sides of the screen. I'm not going to implement that right now because it does add complexity to the tutorial. So at this stage, I'm kind of struggling to get George over the bridge, although I think he can get over the bridge. I don't have anything on the other side of the bridge, so I think it's fine. He is able to make friends. He is blocked by the water. I did run into a problem with this side of the game. I'm trying to get to that apple pie, and I just can't fit George through that, but George is pretty big, right, compared to the other characters, because it's for the purpose of the tutorial, I wanted to make him easier to see. But he's kind of like Godzilla compared to the other characters on the screen, so he's really not going to be able to fit through that space between the greenhouse and the maybe he can barely fit. It's like barely doable, but I can't seem to do it myself. So if it's really bothering you, you could go into tiled and then make that bounding box, so delete the existing bounding box around the water and the house and make it a bit more narrow. So make it more forgiving to for George to pass through and then hit down here. But I'm going to leave it as it is for this tutorial for myself. Subscribe to the channel for updates on the more than 50 videos I've made on Flame. The videos with source code are also available for free on Teachable, 100% free course if this is a hobby. In whatever way you choose to learn, make sure you have fun and unleash your creativity. Have a fantastic day.